Today we're going to field strip or disassemble, clean, lubricate, and reassemble a KelTec PF-9 9mm pistol. First, as usual, we always want to unload and double check that it's unloaded. Remove the magazine, lock the slide to the rear, and make sure there's no round in the chamber and no magazine in the firearm. To start, we want to field strip the PF-9, so while the slide is locked back, you will find a little takedown pin right here. This is the end of the takedown pin, and there's actually a little ridge in there. To pull this pin out, you can either use your fingernail if you have strong fingernails, or you can use a spent brass casing, 9mm. You can just slip that in there, the rim, and use it as a lever and pull that pin right out, loosen it up, and just pull that right straight out of the gun. Set that aside. Now that the pin is out, we just want to push the slide to the rear to release the slide stop lever. It'll drop down, allow the slide slowly to come off the front of the frame, and it comes off just like so. Turn the slide over, press on the recoil spring and guide rod here, and that will come right out. And then you can lift up or push up the barrel and pull the barrel out. And that is as far apart as you need to field strip the gun to give it a good cleaning. Cleaning the gun is a simple matter of taking each piece, clean them up, we're going to wipe them down, then we're going to use a little lubrication and put it all back together. All right, you don't need a whole lot to clean your firearm. You will need some eye protection. You'll need some nitrile gloves if you're going to be working with a solvent. I like to use Hops number 9. It's a gun bore cleaner that's been around for a long time. I like to keep it in a pump dispenser to keep it from getting contaminated. So I pour it in here, and then this top here has a little pump. So you can just pump up what you need to use, and then the rest of it stays clean. You're going to need some kind of a tool to clean the inside of the barrel. And this is just a rod. It comes in a cleaning kit. You'll need a bronze or brass brush to clean the inside, and some kind of a loop that's appropriately sized for a 9mm barrel. And you're going to need some patches appropriate for 9mm. These are 2 inches by 2 inches. That's the right size for a 9mm. You're going to need a brush. You can use a toothbrush, but I prefer to actually use, this is actually a dog toothbrush. It's got a big brush and a small brush on it, and that comes in handy for the different areas of the gun. You're going to need some cotton swabs. These are just regular drugstore cotton swabs. They work fine. I prefer to use these dual-ended cotton swabs. They have a pointy end and a regular end. The pointy end fits perfectly in the slide cuts on most firearms, and the longer shaft comes in handy for getting in some of the tighter spaces in the gun. And these are just some cut-up t-shirts. You're going to need a lot of rags, and then you're going to need a lubricant. I use original gun oil. It's safe to use on all different finishes of guns, but there's a lot of different gun oils out there that you can use. I also like to have pipe cleaners on hand. These are great for reaching into really tight spaces. All these items will be linked in the description below. You can start with any of the pieces you like. I always like to start with the barrel since it is the dirtiest part of the gun. All right, you can see how much unburned carbon and debris has built up inside of this barrel. All right, so the first thing we want to do is get a bunch of solvent down inside the barrel to start loosening up all the crud. So get your rod and put a loop on the end of the rod. Get one of your 9mm sized patches, feed it through the loop. Now we want to get the patch pretty saturated with solvent right here. All right, and then I'm just going to slowly push the patch through the barrel, and the goal here is just to get a bunch of solvent coating the inside of the barrel. Then I'm going to let the barrel sit for a few minutes. All right, after the barrel sits for a few minutes, we're going to take the loop off. We're going to put a 9mm sized bronze or brass brush on the end of the rod, and then we're just going to push the brush through the barrel, in and out just a few times. And what this is going to do is just going to loosen up a bunch of the dirt that the solvent's been working on. Get it nice and loose, and then remove the brush, put the loop back on. And now we're just going to take a bunch of patches with solvent on them and go through the barrel until the patches start coming out clean. All right. So as you'll see, all that dirt we loosened up is now going to come out on these patches. So just go through a couple of times, replace it with a fresh patch, more solvent, run it through. All right. Starting to clean up pretty good. All right, this one's coming out pretty clean. And once your patch starts coming out pretty clean, we're just going to get rid of that. And now we're just going to start pushing through dry patches to do the final cleanup inside the barrel. And just keep doing this until these patches come out clean as well. It's actually not too bad. Alright, I think I'm going to stop here and let's take a look in the barrel and see how clean it is. Alright, that barrel is nice and clean and shiny inside. Now there's a shortcut to cleaning your barrel. If you have a Boresnake, you can clean your barrel a lot quicker. And what a Boresnake is, instead of running a bunch of patches through and a brush, you just run the Boresnake through and it's got built-in copper brushes on it and then a whole bunch of material here to act as a bunch of patches. You would still do the initial soaking of the inside of the barrel with solvent, and then after it sits for a few minutes, you would just drop your Boresnake through and you're going to pull it through and the brushes are going to loosen up the dirt, and then immediately the rest of the Boresnake will pull the dirt and the solvent out of the barrel. And you'll get a nice clean shiny barrel as a result. So I would normally run it through a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and that is a huge shortcut and a lot less mess for cleaning the barrel. Using a Boresnake is a great way to do a real quick cleaning on the gun or just to save a bunch of time cleaning your barrel. The last thing we want to do to protect the inside of the barrel from corrosion, put a couple of drops of oil on a patch and just run that through, just to leave the very lightest coat of oil on the inside of the barrel, just to protect it from corrosion. Alright, and that's it for the inside of the barrel. Alright, once the inside of the barrel is taken care of, we're just going to do the outside now. Get a little solvent and just clean up any dirt that you see on the outside of the barrel, right around this area on the feed ramp here. This is very important to get clean. Clean the entire outside of the barrel and make sure you get in here. This is an important area right here. See, that's kind of dirty. Alright, once you got it pretty cleaned up, take one of your cotton rags and just wipe everything down. Alright, our barrel is looking pretty clean. We are now done with the barrel. Alright, next we're going to clean the slide. This slide has not been cleaned in a little bit, so it's got some dirt here. So we're just going to go ahead and get some solvent and some cotton swabs. So just get in there. You can be a little bit liberal with the solvent and just try to get most of that stuff out of there. Alright, like I said, this barrel is on the dirtier side, so we're going to get a good bit of stuff out of here and just keep cleaning all the surfaces that you can get to. Just keep cleaning with solvent and some cotton swabs until you get it pretty clean. I'm going to get it clean around the firing pin here. One place that is very important to get clean is this notch here that runs up and down the slide on both sides. It's called the slide cut, and this is where the slide moves back and forth on the frame. These rails here go into those slide cuts, and that's where a lot of the friction is, so you want to make sure you get that nice and clean. One of the things I love about these dual-ended cotton swabs is the pointy end is just perfect for getting into these slide cuts. And just keep cleaning them up until they're nice and clean, and once you get the slide cuts pretty clean, just get a dry cotton swab and run it up and down to try and get all the last bit of solvent and dirt out of there. Just get it as clean as you can. Don't forget to clean around the barrel hole in the front here and this little recoil guide hole. Another very important place to get clean is this surface right here, which is called the breech face, where the firing pin comes through that hole in the middle. So we want to get this surface real clean, and if you hold it this way, you see this hook here. This is called the extractor, and that's what grabs the brass after it's fired and pulls it out of the gun to make room for the next cartridge. So it's very important that there's no crud under here. Cotton swab will definitely get under the extractor hook right there. This is a perfect place for cleaning with a pipe cleaner. So you see how the pipe cleaner can get right underneath there. Alright, and once you got it pretty clean, get in there with some dry cotton swabs and just dry everything up as good as you can. Get a lot of that solvent out of there. Take one of your rags and just kind of wipe it down. Alright, once you're done cleaning the inside of the slide, we want to move to the outside of the slide. Now you want to be careful if you're going to use solvent. You don't want to get any solvent on your sights right here. Some of these sights are just white paint, and some solvents are going to eat right through that. So don't use solvent on your sights directly. What I usually do for the outside of the slide, I just get a drop of CLP, of gun oil, and just use that, because that's pretty safe on just about every surface. If you accidentally get some on your sights, that shouldn't be a problem. And just wipe the outside of the slide. Put a little in the serrations there. Just use a dry cotton swab to get around the top of the sights here and the front sight as well. And then just give that a good wipe down on the outside and get that as clean as you'd like it to be. All right, this slide is pretty good. All right, next we're going to clean the frame. Now the frame on this particular gun is a polymer or a plastic, so we don't want to get too much solvent on the plastic part, but we want to clean mostly this upper metal part here where all the moving parts are, and kind of get in these little slots here. If you're worried about using solvent on your plastic gun, you can always use a good CLP, cleaner lubricant protectant, such as original gun oil. I might use this to get the outside here. So first I'm just going to go around the inside here on the metal parts and give it a good quick going over to get most of the worst of it out. Get all the stuff down in there. Yeah, just a little bit of solvent, and go over it with the other side of the swab. Just try and get most of that buildup out of there. A lot of it's dust from being carried. This is a great carry gun. And also you can get your brush down in these grooves here and just kind of brush that clean. You don't have to get solvent everywhere. You can use a brush. Does a pretty nice job actually. Oh, that does a great job. Wow, most of that crud is coming right out of there. Alright, just use the brush then. You can use the brush down in the grip here to clean that out. You want that to be nice and clean because that's where your magazine rides in and out. You can kind of see down next to the hammer there's a little bit of lint and crud buildup in there, so I'm just going to get in there with this brush. It's almost getting it, not quite. Now let me go down in there with a cotton swab. See if we can get that. Looks like we can get a lot of it that way. Go in the back here. Just everywhere you see any kind of dust or lint buildup, just go in there and get it out as best you can. Alright, and once you have it pretty good, just get some of your cotton rags and just kind of wipe everything clean. And you can use a cotton rag and your brush to get in the grooves. Your bristles will push the rag down into the grooves and get that nice and clean. And get the small side of your brush to get down inside. We didn't hardly need any solvent in here. We used a little bit, but most of this was lint that came out pretty easily. And any place that you need to touch up, just get your cotton swabs in there. Alright, we got the frame cleaned up pretty quickly there. If you have a lot of buildup on the handle here, you can use a brush, maybe put a little bit of gun oil on it, a drop of gun oil on a brush, because that's not going to hurt your grip, and kind of wipe that down. Got a little bit here. Let's clean up the trigger, get that cleaned up. Alright, I think we are pretty good on the frame now. Frame's pretty nice and clean. Next we're going to move on to the recoil spring and guide rod here. So basically we just want to wipe this down. No solvent or oil is really needed here unless it's super dirty. Alright, and this spring, this is actually a dual spring. So there's actually two springs in here. We're just going to kind of get in there with a cotton swab, clean the inside of that. It's good that we're doing this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Make sure there's no pieces of debris or anything like that inside the spring. There really isn't a front or back to the spring. The springs are pretty much the same on either side. So just push that in there. And now you are good to go on the recoil spring and guide rod. And now we have the takedown pin, which holds everything together. We're just going to use a little bit of solvent on here to make sure we get this nice and clean. Alright, and then just wipe that clean real quick. Now lastly, we just want to do a quick wipe down on the magazine. If your magazine has been dropped in dirt or gravel at the range, you're going to want to take it apart. And I'm going to have a disassembly video for cleaning the magazine. I'll link to that up here and in the description on how to take this apart and clean the entire inside. But just for our purposes now, you just want to wipe it down, make sure it's clean on the outside. We don't want to put any oil on the magazine because we don't want oil to make its way to the ammunition and cause any problems with the ammunition. This piece at the top that pushes the rounds up, this is called the follower. And it's usually a plastic piece, and we just want to wipe that down, make it clean, and then make sure when you press it down it pops right back up again with a little bit of force to make sure your magazine's working good, and just kind of wipe it down for now. Alright, now that all the pieces are clean, we're going to lubricate and then we're going to reassemble. Alright, as far as lubrication goes, basically the manual doesn't really say a whole lot about lubrication other than to wipe the pieces down with a cloth with a little bit of oil on it. I'm going to get some gun oil or CLP and just put a couple of drops on a rag like this. And then starting with the barrel, I'm just going to do a real quick wipe down of all parts of the barrel that I can get to. Make sure you get in between these barrel lugs like that. Same thing on the slide, just a drop or two on a rag, and then just wipe the inside. Make sure you get those slide cuts with a little bit of oil. Get up in here a little bit. The top of the barrel does come in contact with the top of the slide, so we want a little bit right there, and just get a little coating down into those slide cuts like that. Not much at all. Now, one place you want to be careful, you do not want to get any oil into this hole or into this area here where the firing pin is. The firing pin should be dry without any oil on it, so it can move in and out easily. Frame, same thing. Just get a drop of oil and just lightly wipe these rails here, and then just kind of wipe the inside just to get a little corrosion resistance going on in there. Just the metal pieces, right? You don't want any drops in there. You just want a little coating in there. All right, and that is about it. The only other place that I would go with a tiny bit of oil is on this takedown pin, just to make it easier to get out the next time we want to disassemble the firearm. All right, and no oil on the magazine. All right, so now we want to reassemble this firearm. So take the slide, hold it upside down, drop the barrel in like that. Make sure it's sitting all the way in there. The recoil spring and guide rod, this end goes in the front, and this flat black end goes in the back. Make sure it comes through this front hole here. Then that sits right down in there in the middle of the barrel. And you want it nice and centered in the middle of the slide. It's going to look like that. Before you put the slide on the frame, make sure the hammer is in this position. It's like the half-cocked position. It's not all the way up and it's not all the way down. It's just sitting there like that. All right, and then take the slide, line up the slide with the slide cuts like that so it slides on. And then when you get here, before you start pushing, we want to push the slide all the way back, but we want to press down on the barrel a little bit. We want the barrel to come out of the front. Okay, so push down on the barrel just a little as you push the slide back, and then lock it in place. Now you want to make sure the barrel is poking out the front like that. If you don't push down on the barrel, it's going to get stuck and it's going to move back and it's going to be a problem. Now that the barrel is sitting here, we want to look through this hole, all right, and make sure you don't see parts of the barrel. So if I pull the barrel, you'll see a little bit in that hole there, and if I go that way, you'll see it there. So we want to go right between those two pieces, right there, because that is where the pin is going to go through. Hold the pin this way and push it into the hole like that. It should fall in. Now you want to make sure it clicks in place. So push it nice and firm, it'll click into place just like that. And now push your slide to the rear, your slide lock will fall down, and the gun should close. Now you want to rack it a couple of times, make sure it feels right, and there you have it. Now your gun is reassembled. The next thing you're going to want to do is a quick function and safety test. I'll put a video up here on the corner as to how to do that. The function and safety test is just a quick video of a few things to check on the gun to make sure it is working properly. All right, if you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Check out the description below for all the items that we used in the video today. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.